Okay. Okay. Hello. Today I'm going to be covering one example. We're going to look at one example, but we're looking at going to look at a couple of questions regarding this one example of welfare. So you might hear my cat in the background. He's a little riled up right now. But for now, we're just going to get right into it. I'm going to start off looking right here at equilibrium, and we'll see why as we go through these questions. First, we want to find the equilibrium point. So we have these two equations, just like on Ignithium, blue gives us our demand curve, red gives us our supply curve. It's just this equation is using x's and y's instead of p and q, but we know that our x axis is gives us our quantity and our y-axis gives us our price. So we can easily, just fill in, blue is demand. So we can just, PB, we know that's PB and that this is going to be QB, B because this is the buyers. And then, again, Y is our price, PV because this is our producers, X is our Q, and then V because this is our suppliers. So looking at these equations to find the equilibrium point, it's going to be pretty straightforward. We know at equilibrium, our price and quantities are equal to each other, so we can set these two equations equal to each other. So 21 plus 2Q equals 93 minus 7Q. And we've already gone over equilibrium in a previous SI session. If you'd like to review, you can work through this, but to save time and just jump right into the consumer and producer surplus, I'm just going to type the answers out right here. Once you do the algebra to isolate the Q and solve for it, we'll find that the Q is going to be equal to 8. And then when we plug that back into either one of those equations, we'll see that P is going to be equal to 37. So this gives us our quantity equilibrium and our price at equilibrium. And now what we're going to be looking for is the consumer surplus. And this is going to be given by finding the area of a triangle. So, looking at this right here, if we draw a line from our equilibrium across our equilibrium price all the way across, we'll see we've divided this shape here into two triangles. And so we have this top triangle up here. If we follow the demand curve all the way down to the equilibrium point, and then follow that across and then back up, we see that this is one triangle. And so when we fill in this triangle, the area is going to be the value of the consumer surplus at equilibrium for all of the consumers. So let me just fill this in here. And then so what we want to do then is find the area of this triangle. And we know that the equation for the area of a triangle is going to be 1/2 base times height. So first things first, looking at the base right here, we see, it's pretty straightforward. The base is just this bottom line. And trying to find the value, we can note that it goes from 0 to the equilibrium point, or from 0 to the equilibrium quantity. So that means that the value of our base of this triangle is going to be, so the base, it's just going to be capital. So the base is going to be equal to our Q star, which in this case is 8. Then if we're looking for the height, our height of the triangle is going to be from right here where the demand curve intersects the y-intercept, all the way down to our point right here, the bottom of the triangle, which, as we noted before, is this line drawn out to the P star. Let me write that in a pen instead, to P star. And this point up here, that's the y-intercept of the demand curve, which is given right here in the equation by that 93. So we have 93. So our height then, our height is not 93. Our height goes from 93 down to P star, which is 37. Our height is the difference between those two numbers. So when we're looking for the height, it's not going to be just 93. It's not going to be a straightforward number like it was for the base. for the height, we're going to actually have to do a little bit of calculation. So our height is the y-intercept of the demand curve, 93, minus the equilibrium price here of 37, and that's going to be equal to 56. So now we have our base and our height. So we're going to plug it in. Our consumer surplus is going to be there, the triangle, when we plug the numbers in. So it's going to be 1/2 times 8 times 56, and that's going to give us our consumer surplus at 224. So now we have our consumer surplus. Oops. Just erase, actually leave that. So now we have our consumer surplus. The next thing we're going to look at is our producer surplus in the market. And this is going to be another triangle. For this, we're going to be looking at our, producer surplus. We're going to be looking at our supply. So our supply curve, we're going to go right along our supply curve up until the equilibrium point, and then we're going to go across the price and down, and that's going to give us that little triangle there. And so we're going to fill in this, we're going to fill in this triangle. I'm going to try and get all the way to the corner there. And so the area of that little triangle there is going to give us our producer surplus. And so again, we have our base. Let me try and draw it a little bit more clearly within the lines real quick. Here as well. Okay, so this triangle, our base, our previous one, our base was right here on the bottom. This time with our triangle, our base is going to be sort of at the top here, and it's going to be the same base. If you'll notice, these two triangles are going to have the same base, and that's both going to be the equilibrium quantity. So again, we have the equation for a triangle: 1/2 times base times height. And again, our base is going to be the equilibrium quantity, which right here is going to be 8. And then our height is going to be, we're going to go from right here at P star down to where the supply curve intersects the y-intercept, or intersects the y-axis, which is the y-intercept. In that case, in this case, it's going to be 21. So we're going to be looking at the difference from 37 to 21, the difference of those numbers. So our height is going to be 37 minus 21 equals 16. So now that we have our values, we're going to go back. Our equation for producer surplus is going to be the area of a triangle with these values plugged in. So 1/2 times 8 times 16. That's going to give us 64. Oops, did this? Okay, there we go. So we have our consumer surplus is 224. Our producer surplus is 64. Now, when we're looking at how much total surplus is created in the market, that's going to be our total surplus is both our consumer surplus and our producer surplus. So what we're going to do is add them together. We could find, if you wanted, like, our total surplus, if we were to draw it out here, is going to be this whole like big giant triangle here. And you could do that. You could find the whole area of this, or we've already calculated these two triangles that create that bigger triangle, so we can just add those two values together. We're just going to add our consumer surplus and our producer surplus. Our total surplus is the same as our consumer surplus plus our producer surplus, and we've already found that that's going to be 224 plus 64. And that gives us 288. So this 288 is going to be our total surplus. I'm going to close the video down right here just to make sure that I don't get cut off when I'm uploading this later. And so there's going to be a second video where I go over looking at the consumer surplus of the first consumer and the producer surplus of the first producer.